All right, let's get into creating your first animation, a bouncing ball. So we can see our rig right here. This rig is provided by my good friend and colleague Odin Valvekens. He's a great rigger. And we're going to use this ball as one of our bouncing balls. So the object of this animation is to learn weights. So what we're going to do is to animate one light ball, like a beach ball kind of movement, and a heavy ball such as a bowling ball, for example. This is an exercise that's been done, I think, by 90% of beginner animators, just to get a sense of how to work with Maya and how to do animation and sell weight to the audience. So let's group this ball and give it a name. You can group things by selecting them in the outliner and then do Ctrl G. So now you create a group on top of the object you had selected. So let's call this one beach ball. And to differentiate the colors, let's adjust the color of this ball. So this is some basics into the hyper shading as well. Just gonna do it very quickly. So if you have your object selected, which you want to change the color of, you can click right here and this will give you the in and output connections of this ball. So these are the input and outputs. You can select them again and then press this again, and now we can see the color of the ball right here and the name of the shader. So in here we can put in a color corrector. So if you press tab, an option search bar opens up. So let me do it again. So if you press tab, then you can start typing color, and then you can see color correct right here. And then we can put in the out color in here, in the in color, and we can put the out color in the base color. Put it entirely on screen right here. So it should look like something like this. So the out color into the color correct into main shader. Here's our ball, here's our color, and here we can start shifting the hue or saturation or value or whatever, and let's make it a bit more orangey or yellow, depending on whatever you like. But since we're talking about a beach ball, let's put in a fun color like this one or this one. Yeah, doesn't really matter. So let's make the ball pink. Okay, so let's close the hyper shader for now. Now we have the beach ball, and we want to have another ball that we're going to use as a heavy ball. We know how to reference things, so the ball is referenced, just like I explained in a different part. If you go to the file and then the reference editor, you can see the referenced files. So this is our rig of the ball. So we can make a copy of this one by pressing this button, duplicate reference. And now a second ball has joined in the scene. Obviously we cannot see it since it's on top of the other one, so we can just press our controller right here and then move to the side. And then we have our second ball right here. So let's create a group again and call it bowling ball. And let's do the same thing right here for the shading. Click this, select everything, click this again. Then press tab, color correct, and put this in like this again. Okay, and then since we're going to go with a more heavy ball, we can decrease the saturation and make it a bit more grayish. You can start messing with other things as well, obviously, but you can put on the saturation to 0 and then use these other sliders to make it more gray or black. It's up to you, however you like. But the most important thing is to still see some kind of lines, so we know if the ball is rolling or not, and which direction the energy is going. So it's important that you have a little bit of texture going on with your ball. Let's start with our beach ball, since this will give us the most space into the graph editor and things to learn, I guess. The thing I would recommend, definitely if you're a beginner, is to watch some videos of bouncing balls. There are a lot of them on the internet, so if you just search up bouncing beach ball or bouncing volleyball or bouncing bowling ball, you will have some results, and then you can pick them out. And then you can learn about how they work, how they move, and so on. Before we start, we are going to put our FPS to 12. So these are the amount of frames in 1 second, so frames per second. And we're going to use 12. 12 still looks good to our eyes. It's a bit more stepped, but it still looks good for our eyes, not for our brain. And the main reason why we would switch to 12 in the beginning is because you only have half of the frames to worry about as an animator. We are going to start with 12 FPS for now, and along the series we will move to 24, which is more standardized units in the VFX and animation field. But you have a lot of movies that use older FPS as well, but most commonly it's 24 FPS. So let's start animating. So the first thing we need is something for our ball to bounce on. So let's create a cube right here. And then here in the attribute editor, you can go to polycube and then change the width to 10,000. It's pretty long. Then you can change the height to 1000. That might be a bit much, maybe 100, yes. And the depth we can do 1000 again. So now our ball is in our cube. So let's drag the cube down to minus 100, minus 50, yes, minus 50. We use minus 50 since our cube is 100. As a value of 100 in the height, we can just divide it by 2, and that's our minus value in the y. For the beginning, it's good that we work an orthographic view and make sure we are on 12 FPS. And also let's make this a bit shorter, let's do 50 frames. So save, don't forget. And let's go into an orthographic view. You can go to panels orthographic and then go to front, or you can press spacebar and then you can see our scene gets divided into 4. These are 4 cameras, one perspective camera that we're working right now in, or the top view, the right view, or the front view. To go into the front view, you can just click in this view, press spacebar again, and now we are in our front view. You can see our color disappeared, not to worry. If you press right here, we can enable our color again. You see some weird objects right here. It's called these joints. You can hide them. Just go to show and none, and then press 2 and 1 again, so we can only see the polygons and our controllers. To make sure we're not accidentally clicking our ground each time we're trying to animate something, we can put it into a layer, just like here. These are the layers of our rig, so we can also put them on R by pressing the third square, and now we cannot select our ball anymore. Let's also do this for the floor. So select the floor, then we can press this fourth icon. This will create a new layer of the things you have selected, in this case our floor. So press this one, then this layer appears, double click it to change the name. Floor, you can even give it a red color and press save. Now we double click again, so the third square becomes an R, and now we cannot select it anymore. So we first need to pick our starting position. As a complete beginner, I would recommend you to go to Google or any other favorite search engine and search for a bouncing ball, a bouncing bowling ball, a bouncing beach ball, a bouncing volleyball. Anything that has a ball bouncing, so you can learn about how fast they fall or how they bounce. And so you can recreate these things in 3D in Maya and make your audience believe it's an actual beach ball, for example, or a bowling ball. It's all about learning how things move in life. That's one of the first things you will have to learn. I have to keep learning as an animator. Even when you're a pro, you will use reference all the time. Let's go to our starting position and already put a key on everything. So I did all two to remove the polygons for now and press S to give everything a key. And let's give our first ball placement somewhere here from this height. And then it should be falling down around frame 6. So we can move our Y back to 0. Once again, I recommend you to key everything, maybe not the base, but definitely the squash and stretch, since we will need those controllers later on. And then we go to 12-ish, and then we're going up again. Oh, forgot to go to the right as well. And as you can see, this should be a bit lower since our ball will be losing energy the more it bounces around. It's bouncing here, bouncing again there, and then bouncing again, around 6 frames later again, to 0, to here. There's an easy way to track our ball movement. Just select the main controller that you're using to bounce, go to visualize, create editable motion trail, to show, viewport, enable motion trails. And now we can clearly see our ball moving. Now let's add another keyframe in the air, right here, and same thing here. 0. If you look at what I'm doing, I'm trying to give it some kind of nice curve, but it's a good block out since we're going to adjust all of this later in our graph editor. So let's give it a bit more frames. For now I'm keeping the same spacing each time, but obviously when the ball needs to go less high, it will need less frames. But it's just to get something started, and then we can start modifying the timing by moving keys. Parts of this video will be sped up because I'm repeating the same thing over and over again and doing the same thing over and over again. And then this will be some kind of sped up version until something important happens again. I reapplied the motion trail handle since my time slider was not big enough to visualize everything. The nice thing about this motion trail is that you can select some of these points and move them around. So everything is adjusted in time. Okay, don't forget to save every now and then. so now we have this. Tom, 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 tom. As you can see there, in the beginning it makes sense, the time it has, but then it's becoming very slow motion-ish. That's because the timing is completely wrong here, since it needs a lot less time to start going up and down. But even before I'm going to adjust this, there's that you need to know, and that's how to use the graph editor. So if you open up the graph editor, press G like I did for a shortcut. Here we can see our movement in the X, and here we can see our movement in the Y. So this is almost a one-on-one representation. Actually, it is a one-on-one representation of this curve, right? And a bouncing ball is going under gravity, right? Like everything in the world. So we need to apply this gravity rule here in the graph editor. So how do we do that? So make everything a bit more clear. Put this here, yes. So to go under gravity, it means that you're going down at the same speed. And right now, if we see here, we have an ease out and ease in on speed when going down and starting up again. We get something like this. Tonk, tonk. That's a bit weird. So what's important is to make the bottom ones sharp. So you can do this by selecting all of them, right click and press weighted tangents. Weighted tangents allow you to modify the amount of energy you're going to change, right? So it's actually like increasing or decreasing some kind of value energy within a certain axis. If you don't have them on weighted, so it's non-weighted, it's more like moving the weight around. So you're not increasing or decreasing anything, it's just pushing the weight more to the left or the right of the curve. That's my way of thinking about it, but there are a lot of people with maybe other things to link this towards, but I link it with like energy. So now let's put them all to weighted. So we select these ones and then weighted, and now let's make this sharp. So you can do this in a lot of ways. You can do this by right clicking and breaking tangents and trying to modify it so it becomes sharp, like this. Another way that I like to use is to scale them. So you can hold shift and drag them with middle mouse button to each other. Even if that's not enough, you can just break them and then do them separately as well. And you do this for all of them. So just select your key, then select the handle and move them together with shift and middle mouse button. Okay. So now we have a sharp downwards motion and it starts up again sharp. So another thing that's happening in life just outside, you're trying to fight gravity each time you're going up, and now it's already doing that a little bit, so it's going up and slowing down, and then here it loses the fight, so our ball loses the fight on this frame and it's going down again. But we can give our ball a bit more of a floating feeling by selecting all the handles and increasing the angle right here, so round it more, and then it will have more airtime. And if we play our animation now, it already feels a lot more like a bouncing ball. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Don't forget to save every now and then. So now we have our Y movement pretty much figured out, but it makes sense right here to make this amount of float, but then it starts to get a bit worse. Right here, this is a bit too big, so we'll have to adjust every one of them a little. So, okay. Now we can look at our movement to the right. So here we can already see there's like an ease in our motion, but we have to assume our ball was already bouncing before we made the animation. It's called cutting into action. So when you're animating stuff, don't try to start your animation slow. Try to cut right into the action before a character starts doing something or it's already doing something. So the audience does not have to wait until something happens. This will make all of your stuff more interesting. So we can straighten this out or just press here and put it on linear. And here we can clearly see a logarithmic curve. So it starts off strong and it's going more flat the more it goes up. So it's pretty clean right here, but we still have to adjust some things, and we can even make this a lot more simpler. We can do this by using a buffer curve. So select your curve and we can press this button, buffer curve snapshot. What does a buffer curve do? So I press a button, nothing really happened, but if I start moving some keys, we can see black line. So this is our snapshot. This is some kind of memory of where the curve was before you adjusted it. And you can always snap back right to it. If you press the button right here, it will go to the original buffer curve. And you can snap back and you can go back to your adjustments. So what I would like to do is move this and try to recreate this spot, but only with 2 keys. Just use the handles to recreate this movement. I think this is more than close enough for now. So let's play our animation. Boink, 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 boink. This already feels a lot like a bouncing ball, but our timing is still not that great. And this is also a bit too close to each other, so let's make some tiny adjustments. As you can see, the moment I start adjusting things, our motion trail is also being adjusted. And now let's try to adjust our timing a bit so it makes a bit more sense. Adjusting your timing is easy when you have some reference going on. If you have watched some videos about bouncing balls, you can really like try to match it as much as you can. So I'm going to fast forward in this time retiming. So let's play our animation. This already feels a lot like a bouncing ball,